What does it take to get beyond the damage of words? I'm Katrina Collier. Join me each week as I explore what it takes to step into a happier future. My guests are sharing their stories of when they realised that they needed help and what it took to take that first step, so that you leave inspired and maybe even start on your own path to self-love, care, compassion, and of course happiness. So without further ado, let's hear their stories. Ingrid Morgan, welcome to Beyond the Damage of Words podcast. I'm so thrilled to talk to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yes, today is a good day. We have
Yeah,
our
I
ups
hear
and
you've got
downs.
sunshine, so I'm just not going there with the
Yeah,
jealousy department.
I'm seeing blue skies, which is a positive, always a win.
Yeah, I'm clearly in the wrong part of the UK. Um, Southeast London is not sunny.
Mm.
So tell me, how did you start on your healing journey? What happened to lead you in that direction?
So I can probably pinpoint the start of the healing process to when I was in my very late teens, so like 18, 19,
Mm-hmm.
which is when I hit absolute rock bottom and I had no choice but to start climbing up from there.
Oof.
Um, so just a bit of background for people, I suppose. When the main trauma in my life was when I was 5, and my
Mm-hmm.
dad committed suicide, which obviously needs no explanation. It had a massive impact on all of us, and I think we probably didn't even realise the impact that it would continue to have in years to come.
That ripple that just
Yes,
continues on and on.
yeah, yeah, and you never get over it. You don't. And the trauma never goes away. That you will be affected by it forever.
Mm.
It's just kind of, I guess, how you learn to deal with it, or how much you let it affect you as your life
Yeah.
goes on. And I was a very disturbed teenager. You know, we also emigrated from South Africa to England when I was 11, which is an awkward age to move,
Yeah.
and then
But
had
it
to
did
change
mean you
schools
lost your
again like a
accent
year
altogether.
later. Say again.
You did lose your accent altogether, though.
Yes, completely gone. Probably a good thing. Um, and yeah, I was a disturbed teenager and
Mm.
went down some very dark routes, which ended in me taking an overdose when I was, I think, 19, not 18.
Mm.
And it was a very serious attempt. I was very upset when it didn't work, refused
Yeah.
to give the hospital my mum's details because I just didn't want to be sent home and have to sort of start all over again. Um, so that was a really hard time, but it was also just miraculously the best thing that could have happened because
Mm.
it did two things actually. It made me address the problem, rather than burying it away, kind of forced me to talk about it. And it's funny, once you start talking, it all comes out and it all really
Yeah.
helps. And the other thing that it did is it made me understand the position that my dad had been in. I think that was the biggest game changer for me. Um, Having spent the previous years being incredibly angry, as we talked about,
Mm.
at him abandoning me and how could he be so selfish, and also the frustration, anger, like why did you do it?
Yeah.
And
Yet
now I go back to
there you were in about to do the same thing.
exactly,
Like you'd got to that gosh, that would give you a serious case of empathy, wouldn't it?
yeah,
So
and you realize
was
sorry, go
sorry.
on.
No, you go.
You
Was the
realize that you're not doing it out of anything selfish. In fact, it's
Mm,
almost the opposite. You almost feel like you're doing people a favor, which is just
yes.
so sad to look back on that anybody would
It's the
ever think.
falsehood. It's the
Mm,
false, isn't it, as well? Like, I look at, my mum's first husband's suicide, and again, it was probably he was at that point, he thought and then you just see the damage and the fallout. So
yeah.
you've talked about I mean, was it when you started talking, was it that releasing that all that anger? Had you sort of suppressed it and held it inside before, thinking you couldn't release it? Or what sort
I
of
yeah,
what was the talking about?
I don't know why I had suppressed it before. I couldn't talk about it if it ever came up,
Mm,
between me and my mum. I would just go to rage point, not at her, just at the situation. So it did get bottled down and it came out in various other horrible ways.
Mm,
Um, I didn't start therapy straight away. I think I kind of had to start talking more openly with the
mm,
people closest to me. You know, people had questions. Um, I started doing a little bit of reading now that I understood this, this term
mm.
depression,
Yeah.
and trauma and things like that. I found quite eye opening. I can talk later if you want about a book that I read in more recent years that was really quite life changing for me as well.
Mm,
And I've just kind of forced myself to become the kind of person that talks really openly to anyone, not inappropriately, but when it's when it's the right kind of situation, I will be really open about my mental health and about my dad's suicide,
mm.
because it helps me to address it and to
Yeah.
not bury it and not forget it and all of that. And it also
And
really
also
encourages other people to talk.
yeah, and which is how well, I mean, we were connected, but it
Mm,
was more I saw the post that you'd written,
yeah,
for men, really, and it was like, "Oh, hang on, I wanna hear your story." But I feel it's when we step into that vulnerability and when we are open, it gives other people permission to
exactly
be
that.
open, and you just don't know whose life you're saving as well
Mm,
by you just being because they're not necessarily gonna let you know, but that
yeah.
impact
Yeah.
you can
I
create.
think I studied psychology at uni, and I seem to remember it's called something like, mutual disclosure.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to be about trauma, but just generally, if you share a little bit about yourself, the other person shares a little bit, and you go back and forth until you're both very,
Mm,
very open. And I do find, because I'm a very open person,
mm.
um, other people will come to me with things that I'm not necessarily the closest person to them, but they'll come and tell me these really deep personal things
Mm,
because I think they know they can trust me. 'Cause I've
yeah,
trusted them, you know?
and I think also because it's the no judgment,
Yeah, absolutely.
like you
100%.
just hear it,
Mhm.
and I think that's what people need as well.
Yeah, for
Gosh.
sure. So
So
that's been a big one for me, the talking about it,
mm,
and continuing to do so. Some of the other things I think when you've suffered with some kind of trauma, especially at a young age, you end up making some wrong choices as you then continue to go through life. So
yes,
obviously obviously,
we gotta
so whether
divert from the pain and make
yeah.
some wrong choices so we don't feel it for
Yeah.
a while there.
Whether it's things like, choosing the wrong crowd to hang out with,
Mm,
choosing the wrong job even, the wrong lifestyle, you kind of create a persona that isn't really you, and then that in itself leads to, just
mm.
a lot of, like, anguish and that feeling of inauthenticity, is that a word?
Yes, it
Um,
is. It's a tongue twister today, but it's definitely a word. But it's
and
it's
so
it's actually a way of numbing. It's a way of distracting yourself
mm,
from
yeah,
feeling the pain. It's like, I'll go hang out with those people. In fact, I was talking to my mentee earlier, and he was talking about, he pays it forward. He goes, "Oh, I'm a coach for this, and I do this, and I do this." I'm going, "Yeah, it's all distracting you from dealing with your pain
mm,
because you have no
mm,
time, right?" He went, "Oh."
yeah.
Even though it
I was
seems what he's doing is wholesome, it's like, but you're still not you're avoiding what you need to
mm.
heal to feel
Yeah, I
better.
think avoidance is probably the biggest problem, and I mean,
Mm,
I've been lucky that a couple of times in my life now, in my adult life, I've been able to make some really big dramatic changes, like quitting a career path, moving cities, blah, 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 things like that, which
mm,
not in a runaway sense, not at all, in much
mm.
more in a, "This is not right for me. I'm
Yeah.
going to jump off the building and build the parachute on the way down, and just create something new and weave more positive things into my life." Now I know that's
Mm,
not possible for everyone, right? Because at the time I didn't have family and things like that.
mm.
But that's been a big one for me to just try and be a bit more true to myself.
What were
Um,
the signs that you weren't being true to yourself? What were you feeling or
I
experiencing that
suffered
made you go, "What am I doing? This is
I
just not
suffered
me."
a lot of panic attacks. Um, Really quite severe ones, debilitating, not just like, "Oh, I'm feeling really anxious and a bit sweaty," but like almost physical rigidity, not being able to
Mm,
breathe, like extreme hyperventilation, and things like that. And it just that was a real shock to me when that started happening. That was a whole new thing alongside the depression. And I was like,
yeah.
God, what is this? Um, and I couldn't tell whether it was work related or life related, but it was. like a fear response to something that just wasn't right.
Yeah.
Um, and certainly since, so 2019 was the last time I sort of did this big life change that centered around a career
Mhm.
change and having more flexibility, more variety in my life, more creativity, more downtime, all of those things.
Mm.
Um, and I've had a couple of panicky episodes since then when my anxiety's peaked again, but on the whole, I'm much more mentally stable.
Yeah. And is that because you're now aware sort of what the source is and you have like tools to help you to soothe, or what's changed? Mind you, you've got back into your art, haven't you, as well?
I've
Which
got, but
is
that's a
really
big
important.
thing. I've got this creative outlet, not just a creative outlet. Obviously, that I think for anybody, that's a fantastic thing to have. But art is so true to who I am and what I want to do. It's been
Mm.
a really cathartic thing to have back in my life.
Mm.
Um, Stepping away from like the busy lifestyle, I think, like you said about
Mm.
this other this coach force. If you're not allowing yourself time to just be still,
Be.
chill, whatever it is, it doesn't have to
Mm.
be some like, oh, I'm doing yoga all the time or going for beachside walks. It's like it can be anything.
Mm.
Just be still. Don't make too
Be
many
still.
plans. Don't fill every gap in your calendar with something to do.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's what my life used to be like. So now I really feel it when my diary gets a bit too busy, albeit with positive things. I start to get overwhelmed, and I need
Actually, I do
some
that.
routine, some regularity, some
Mm.
calmness.
Yeah, it's funny. It's quite liberating to sort of just say I'm not available, even if it's like, oh, well, actually, I'm staying at home and just watching TV, so I don't have to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
something.
and
People
do you know what I found that
people
the
never
me and
query
my
if you say
girlfriends,
you're not available. They never ask you why you're not available.
but I will legitimately take it from my friends if they go, "Do you know what? Do you mind if I don't do tonight or this afternoon? I'm just feeling all peopled out.
Rubbish.
Just need
Yeah.
some time by myself." And I'm like, "Absolutely, thank God that you
Mm.
felt that you could say that to me," you know?
Yeah.
And so I'll
Well,
say it to other people.
what led you to the stillness? Was there like a was it part of this change in 2019 where you were able to just be still? I find a lot of people kind
Yeah.
of struggle the first time they need to be still, be it
Yeah.
meditating, yoga, whatever it is. That
It was definitely a transition. So when I quit my job, I went out to South Africa where I was born, for 3 months and stayed with some very close friends of the family. The woman mother of the household is
mm,
an artist. So I wasn't working. I was just
mm,
not just kind of being mentored, but also just working in her space with her.
yeah,
I didn't have a job. I didn't have a social
amazing.
life around me. Um, I didn't have money to be spending and going out all the time. I was doing yoga quite regularly and just going for like local runs. So that really helped take me completely away from the pace of life that I had been in, which was
Mm,
recruitment at the time, which anybody who understands recruitment as you do, it is not a relaxed
yes.
lifestyle that goes with it.
No.
So
It's
it
a
was
lot
it
of
was
pressure and reactivity and, yeah,
yeah,
stress.
yeah.
It's
And when I
hard.
came back, I remember thinking that one thing that was really important in this 3 months where I just was trying to figure everything out,
Mm,
I needed to make sure I didn't want to work 5 days a week. I wanted to
mhm,
have a job that only required me to work the hours that were set, not an extra two
mhm,
every day, three every day. So I mean, having my Fridays was my studio day. So I found a communal studio and I would go in
mm.
there and I would put my headphones on and I would paint all day. And it was just, yeah, it was a wonderful time. I mean, honestly, I almost felt a bit smug at how beautifully things had worked out and so happy I was that I had made that dramatic, scary decision to just leave
Mm,
my career. I had just bought a new car on finance. I was the only one paying my mortgage. I didn't have any savings accounts, and I just quit
mm,
like that. So
yeah.
it was a bit scary, but it worked out, and it was just the best thing. And I
It's
was
funny 'cause
financially a lot worse off, but
yeah, but emotionally so much better. And it's funny because the universe always delivers. Like we always
mm,
it's almost like the papers and the press have us in this scarcity
yeah,
mindset that, "Oh, gotta have cash in the bank," rah, rah, rah," and
yeah,
it's head down. Whereas actually when you go the other way, gut and heart up, which is what you did, you're like, "Oh, this is what I need." to be
Yeah.
emotionally healthy, then the
Yeah.
opportunities arrive. I mean,
That
it's
was
like,
that was
people
exactly
will
it.
be listening kind of going, "Oh, well, there are no 4-day." Well, no, there are 4-day-a-week jobs out there. There are part-time jobs. There is all sorts. Just you have to decide that they are there.
Yeah.
And the second you decide
I
they're
had
there,
2-day-a-week jobs, and
perfect.
that fitted in, and again, they both kind of just fell into my lap, and they were both it just all worked out perfectly. I almost couldn't believe it, and yeah, whether you believe in spirituality or the universe or just, I don't know, just good luck, it was
Magic.
just yeah, it was one of those things that was just the right
Yeah.
thing to do.
I do
Uh,
think what you think you get, so that's why
mm,
people have to be careful. I mean, it's that thing, isn't it, where you like think, "Oh, X hasn't rung me for ages," and boom, they send a message or they call, or it's
yeah,
that,
yeah. Oh, I was
we
just
had
thinking of
that
you. Mm,
capability. So it's like, be careful
mm.
what you're thinking.
Yeah,
Because if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
thinking that it's all going to be crap, it'll all be crap. So did you go the professional route? Did you end up having, because you alluded to therapy at
Mm,
the beginning, did you
yeah.
go that route, go that path? How was that?
Yeah. So I've obviously had my medication, various different types, on and off for 20 years. I have now found a nice stable point with it. Um, it's something that, again, I alluded to in the LinkedIn post that you saw, that
Mm,
it's not for everyone, and even if it does really help, it's certainly not a solution to the problem. It's just the symptoms.
mm,
Um, and even that, it just dulls it down. It doesn't take it away
yeah.
completely. So you've got to address the problem underneath. And yes, I've had various different, like, short snippets of therapy, but never gelled with a therapist until I found
Mhm.
this one guy called Graham. It was all on over Zoom or whatever we were using at the time. And I had a good
I
connection
think
with him, and I
that's actually something I think has stayed, that there
yeah,
is so much online now, which is
mm,
great. Who wants
yeah.
to drag their button to town for an hour meeting when you can just jump on a Zoom?
Exactly, and also, if you have a bit of a traumatic session, you don't wanna then be, like, getting on
Crying
a
on the
train
train on
or
the way
drive
home.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I spoke to him for 8 months, once a week for 8 months, and
Amazing.
it was funny at the time, do you know what? We barely talked about my dad. This is what really shocks me. I was like, "Surely he's going to
Mhm.
just dig up all this past trauma." And he didn't really. We talked about the present and the future,
Mhm.
and you can't tell at the time, if you're not like, "Oh, I'm feeling so much better. I feel like this person has cured me." That's not how it works.
No.
It he just obviously just planted seeds and just helped me change my way of thinking, and it did have a big impact. The one thing I remember him saying specifically was, "Ingrid, you've got to stop prioritizing your future self." So I was always thinking, it'll be different when I have a job that's
Oh,
X, Y, or Z,
yes.
or it will be different when I have a partner, or maybe if I have kids, it will be different if then. So I've just got to get there, and then everything will be okay. And he was like, "I really
Wow.
hope all these things happen for you, and I believe that they will.
Mm.
But if they don't, you really need to focus on yourself now, and make sure that you
Yeah.
do now." And that was a big thing that stuck with me, that, again, was probably at the start of leading me to make these big changes. I remember when I made this change, I wanted to email him. I should have done, and gone, "Graham, you'll never guess what. All of the things that I said I wanted to do, I'm doing them. I made the change." Um,
I'm sure you could message him now and he would still appreciate it.
yeah, he had a big influence on me. The other thing I
Just
said
it's
earlier.
funny how it's like a one comment, isn't it, that somebody
Mm,
makes that makes you go, "Oh, wow." So it's interesting, you've said the word cure a few times, and so I said
mm,
to I spoke to my friend Lynn Hanford Day, who's also been on the podcast. I'd seen a comment on Instagram and someone had said, "Oh, I had the sessions I could have on the NHS, and now there's nothing else." And it's like it's almost like they go to the NHS for a cure. The
mm,
NHS can only offer so much, and it's like my thing was, "Well, why don't they put their hand in their pocket, like maybe cut the shoe fund or the holiday
mm,
fund or the I don't know." And I'm being a little flippant, but like, don't they want to invest in themselves and do the deeper stuff which you've talked about as well? Because
yeah,
it takes time to heal. It's not a quick fix. We can't just go get a cure. It's like
yeah. No,
that was
not
a
at
real
all.
eye opener for me yesterday. It was like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. They're just looking for that quick win, and it's like, no, it takes
Mm,
time.
mm. And there's different kinds of therapy. You've got your CBT, which wasn't right for me. You've got group
Mm,
therapies. I think a lot of those are actually free. I mean, yes, some of them do
mm,
cost money, but as you said,
yeah.
oh,
There's
there are
so
some
many
people that
options.
couldn't find the money for it. But it's funny how much, if you really want something, there are things in your life that you can cut back on to
Yeah.
pay that. 50, 60 quid a session, even if it's a
Yeah.
couple of times a month, it can make a real
Just stay
difference.
home on Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
there you
know,
go. One less
not go
takeaway
out.
or something.
Yeah, I mean, that was all that was going through my mind. I mean, 'cause it was funny because, it didn't enter my head not to pay for it myself at any
Mm,
point. It was like once I started seeing how great it was and how great I was feeling, like you were
yeah.
saying, like, once you start, you're like,
I think if you could say to people, "Pay the money and you will definitely get the outcome you're looking for," they would do it. But it is a bit tough, it's hard to
agreed.
say whether it's gonna work or whether you're gonna click with the right therapist straight away or how long
Yeah.
it's gonna take, what the outcome's gonna be, but it's gotta be worth trying, right?
Actually, what do you think it was about him that made you click with him even,
Do you know what? Funny, I
compared to
trusted
the
him
others?
from the beginning because because my sister had, been speaking to him. So
Mhm,
she went, "Why don't you try this guy? He's really nice." He also had he just had a very calm way about him. Very
mm,
calm. He was happy to make jokes. He was happy for me to make jokes. I didn't feel like I was in this, like, formal doctor's
so
setting.
serious, so
Yeah.
Ingrid.
And I knew, so a lot of what he worked with, one of his specialities was working with, teenagers who had drug
Mhm,
problems and things like that. So I knew there was just I knew there was nothing I could say that would be faux pas or that would shock him, or I
mm,
better not mention that.
yeah,
I just felt very, very open with him.
yeah, which is so important, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, because some of the stuff you share is just
Mm,
you do feel that, like, vulnerability to kinda go, "Okay, now I'm gonna say this," and
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a process. It's scary. It is a bit
Mm.
scary.
Actually,
And there's
that's why I've written some of my worst behavior. That's a good way of
Mm,
putting it, into my memoir because I'm just like and it's not I didn't go the drug route. I actually got very addicted to cigarettes so fast I knew that if I touched drugs, I'd be off. So
mhm,
thank God that happened and I did actually connect the dots. But behavior to like ex-partners and things like that. I've
mm,
written it all out because I'm like, this is how I was behaving. These are all symptoms that there's
mm.
a deep trauma.
And that
Because I
and that's
thought
fine to own that as well. I saw,
vulnerability. Yeah.
what's her name? Dawn French went on, Graham Norton's show the other day. I just saw a
Oh,
little
the
clip of
chat
it.
files. I have that book
Years
sitting over
back.
there to read.
Yeah, where she's just written down all of the twatty things she's done in her life, and it
Yeah.
must be so liberating to go, "Yeah, yeah, I did
I
this,
was
and
such
it was
a
really
bad
stupid, but it's okay because we all do it."
yeah,
Definitely.
it's sitting there underneath, oh, what's her name? Margoyles. I'm finishing her memoir
Mhm.
at the moment, so it's next in the pile, the
Yeah,
twat
I
files,
think
because
I
I think
think I
it'll be
might have
quite
to
funny.
give that a read for a laugh if nothing else.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. So
Speaking of, books, I wanted to just
oh,
say
yeah,
because
yeah, please, please.
such a helpful one, and, I bought it for my mum for Christmas, I lent it to friends. It's called Lost Connections by Johann Hari,
I love
and
Johann Hari.
yeah, I really wanna read it again now that I'm in a different place in my life and
Mm,
and just see how it compares. But yeah, it just talks about all of the things we've kind of lost in modern society, all of the things that are stopping us from feeling connected and authentic and all of those things,
mm,
and leading to that feeling of being a bit lost, in despair,
yeah.
depressed. And I think that was again some seeds planted in me of
Mm,
finding more valuable, meaningful things in my life.
mm.
Sometimes it takes dramatic
Your
changes.
present life, not your
Present
future,
life,
like, I
yes.
love that, I really love that.
Mm.
And did he have because I read his Stolen Focus and you basically get to the end and he doesn't have the answer. Were there answers? Were there things where it was like, here are some obvious ways you might be losing connection, or was it
I honestly can't remember how he concluded it because it was years ago now that I read it. Gosh, I don't know how many years ago, but yeah, a while back.
yeah.
Um, I just remember he gave some very good real life examples of,
Mm,
people or either individuals or societies or cultures,
mm,
and where they were either getting things wrong or where they were getting things right.
yeah.
Um, and it was just that I found very kind of
Mm.
eye-opening. Like silly things like there was some city in Brazil somewhere that had banned all advertising. So no
Oh,
billboards, no
wow.
magazine advertising, nothing like that. So
Oh,
you
that
were
would be
not
amazing.
you were never bombarded with what adverts do, which basically goes, you are lacking in some way. You're lacking this
Yeah.
beauty product. You're lacking this
Yeah.
home appliance. You're lacking this, shiny watch, that you constantly feel that you need
Oh.
stuff that you can't get, or that you're lacking as an
Mm.
individual. And yeah, there were statistics about, the levels of
Ah,
depression going down and things like that.
that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And another example was
Wow.
a shop of some sort. I want to say it was a bike shop or something. And basically, they got rid of any hierarchical structure, so they were just all on the same level. They all had the same share in the business.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sort of scraping at details here because it was a while
It's all
ago,
right.
but taking away that, having the feeling of ownership, of
Mm.
responsibility, of value, of contribution.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just such an eye-opening book to
I
read, and you
I love the
realize.
way he writes as well, because
Mm,
I mean, he's
mm,
a journalist, isn't he? So he writes in that way. It's all quite, well researched and put together.
yeah,
Yeah, and
and very
puts
easy to
together a
read as
case.
well.
Yes, he makes it very accessible, doesn't he? I
Mm,
love that with Stolen Focus, and I love that he was trying to say it's not our fault that we're addicted to these phones. He
yeah,
has explained that much. He just hasn't necessarily solved the problem of how to not be,
but
which
I guess that's the
he's really
same.
honest about.
It's the
So,
same thing with therapy, isn't it? It's not
mm,
necessarily about giving you an answer, because there is never an answer.
yeah,
It's helping you to, if you can understand more your thought processes or your
yeah,
behaviors, it's much easier to then just slowly start changing
stop it.
them.
Yeah,
Even sometimes
that's
that even happens naturally. You don't have to go, right, I'm going to change this. Sometimes
mm,
just by understanding it, it
yeah.
is part of the evolution of you, getting to that place.
Exactly. Or it's why am I thinking about that? So I always have my default to think about my dog. So the second I realize I'm thinking about something completely negative and is of no value to me, and why am I even thinking about it? It was 20 years
Mm,
ago. I go straight to thinking about Banjo or my past dog, because it's
yeah,
just an immediate happy memory. But you have to become that, like, consciously aware of what you're thinking, which
yeah,
is a process. But I think when you start the self work, you then start that process of kind of go, why am I thinking about that? Or why am I
God, yeah,
dramatizing that? Because it could go a thousand different ways. And that
yeah,
was one of the things, again, with the memoir, is that I realized I thought it was sort of my journey from self hate to self love. Then I realized actually it was to the self mastery bit, which is like what you're talking about. It's that
mhm,
awareness, and it's
mhm,
that
yeah,
willingness to do something, like being curious about your emotions and the situations.
mm,
And that's why I don't want anyone to think it's a formula. No, it's what I happen to do. But I know
mm,
people who've got their completely different ways. Find your thing, which is kind of why I asked the therapy question of you, like, why that therapist? Because there's
yeah.
so many that keep trying. What else is
And also,
possible,
it's not even, I mean, obviously you're in a different place to where you were years ago, and you've got
Mm,
these tools and all of that, but you've got to continue to learn. Like, it's never just like, oh, I've
mhm.
done it, I've passed the test, now I can just get
No,
on. It's gonna always try and creep its way back in. I think this is something I've been aware of, issues with my depression, with my anxiety, and
mm,
with my dad. Thought processes around that. It's always, there's always a threat of it creeping back in.
yeah,
So you've got to kind of it's like a muscle, right? You've got to keep using it, these tools that you have, the attitudes and perspectives
yeah.
that you're trying to maintain. It's a
It's the realization of, okay, hang on, this feels familiar. Am I going down the familiar path?
yes.
Our brains want to take us down the same path. It's easier for them. It's like, okay, but I don't wish to go down that path. I know
Mm,
what's going on here. And it's then, using whatever methods it is, either to heal it or to self-soothe or
mm,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for
No,
me,
I
it
love
goes
that
back
you're
to
doing that.
talking about it, being really honest with my husband, with my friends, with my family. Thankfully, I now
Mm.
work for my sister, so I can do it at work as well and say, I'm having a mental health blip. Um,
Mm.
and
And
people,
how has he provided support? Because probably part of the reason we're divorced, and I don't think he'd be bothered by me saying this, but, like, sometimes I would say to my ex-husband, like, "I'm feeling this," and because of his trauma, he would end up angry, thinking he'd done something wrong, and it's like,
oh
"Ugh,
gosh,
I can't win here. I'm just trying to tell
yeah,
you Yeah, no, we're much better now. We're
yeah,
really good divorced. Great
yeah,
friends. We should never have got married. I love interviews, but what were we thinking? But
mhm,
yeah, so how's he provided that support? I'm thinking if anyone's listening and actually they need to
yeah.
provide, what does he
Yeah,
do that makes you feel like I can go, you know what, I'm having a shit day, leave me be?
I remember the first time I had a really bad, depressive episode. It was longer and more severe than usual, and he was he was so wonderful. It actually made me look at him with slightly different eyes. I was like, wow, you've really stepped up here. No one's ever done this before. And it was just
Mm.
basically making me feel like I was in a completely safe place where I
Mm.
didn't need to worry about anything. I could, if I wanted to just lie in a dark room, I could do that. If I wanted to sit on the sofa and drink wine or eat ice cream, I could just do that. And he was just
Mm.
gentle and just gave me space. I think he was like, would always check in and let me know that he was there,
Mm.
but not forcing me to talk, not forcing me to do anything, just basically giving me a safe, protected space where I could just ride it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Feel it and release it.
yeah, and that was lovely.
That's
That was all I needed. And obviously, us
yeah.
we're very good communicators. So when the opportunity comes, I do want to talk about certain things. Then
Mm.
he's very open with me. I'm very open with him. But yeah, just providing that gentle, safe space for someone is all they need. Sometimes I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, and I think that's a good key to partnership as well. I will choose better next time. In the because like we're really open about some things, but like I'm not open about my spirituality with him at
Yeah.
all. Like, and that's a massive part of who I am as a human.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's kind of funny because he doesn't believe in it because he's very scientific. It's his own trauma, but yet does because he'll go, "Have you got one of those feelings about this?" And it really amuses me. It's
It's
like,
sometimes all right to
you
have your
don't
set.
believe in any of this stuff because, yeah, but have you got one of your funny feelings?
Yeah.
Like, it makes me giggle, but that's it. It's just stuff, isn't it? Um, Thank you. I know because we had the pre-conversation, you were a bit hesitant. You were like, "Oh, I'm not sure I can talk about this." I'm like, "I'm pretty sure we can." Um,
I just didn't want to think that I had an exact answer, but we've talked about
there is
that.
no exact
There isn't
answer.
like an answer, is there? And I'm
No, which
still
is
going
why
through
I
the
wanna tell
journey.
all these stories. I just wanna
Mhm.
keep telling people stories, and everyone, like, because it'll be one little thing that clicks for one person, and they go,
Exactly,
"Oh,
yeah.
okay."
Yeah,
And
and if
that's
I can
why
say something that helps someone else, then
oh,
fantastic.
I mean, I've learned from this, just to make sure my next partner is the open
Yeah.
communication. No, there's been other things, about your book and so on. There's
Yeah,
always there's always learning, like you said,
mm,
isn't there?
for
If
sure.
people wanna get in touch with you, what's the best place to find you? Is it LinkedIn or
I guess LinkedIn, yeah, because 'cause I've just got my personal profile on there, so Ingrid Morgan. I don't think that there's lots of us. I work for,
no, it's a great name. Nice and
yeah,
unusual like
Rin
mine.
Hamber& Co. Or they can find us at our mutual connection. Yeah, yeah, always
Yeah,
happy for people to get in touch,
amazing. Oh,
definitely.
that's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and being so open. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Oh, fantastic. I look forward to listening to some of your other episodes as well, to hear some of your
Oh,
other guests. And
that's
good luck
kind.
with that
Thanks.
memoir. I will be buying a
Thank
copy
you.
for sure.
Ah, thank you. That I'm honored. Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Damage of Words. How brave, how vulnerable. All to inspire listeners like you to take a step or inspire others to take a step. Imagine what healing we could create if we normalize this conversation. So please pass this on and, of course, subscribe so we can do just that. Until next time, thank you.